Hello guys and welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about the Tiger 1 and more importantly the video I made on it. Now the video done amazingly well, which I'm very grateful for. However, many of you commented about historical inaccuracies I put in and the over-exaggeration of the flaws in its design. So in today's video I'm going to try and disprove as many of you as I can and talk about both the positives and the negatives of World War II German tank design. Now, the first comment about the Tiger's belly armour and its relative weakness in my opinion compared to the rest of the tank. The commenter said, "I don't know where you got the weak belly armour from, but it's 100mm. Well, firstly, I got the information from a book from the Bovington Tank Museum, which I believe is a trustworthy source as they own many of the tanks they talk about, such as Tiger 131. And the second comment I want to talk about is that the Russian tanks were always worse than the Tiger, and that none could destroy it at the end of the war, which just isn't true. Tanks such as the IS-2 and Su-100, which were designed to cut through German heavier armour such as the Tiger. This is also the reason why the Tiger 2 was made, as the Tiger 1 was slowly becoming more and more vulnerable, though it still beats the more numerous tanks like the T-34-85. Now I've finished talking about the comments, let's talk about the benefits of tanks like the Tiger. Firstly, the fear that affected Allied tank crews when heavier Axis tanks were scouted in the nearby areas. It was so widespread that Panzer IVs with side skirts were often confused for Tigers and therefore avoided by British and American forces. Along with this, many veterans from the Normandy campaign later said the Tiger 1 was the only tank all Allied soldiers could name, apart from their own. One reason for why the German tanks were so feared is the ruthless efficiency of their main guns against the mass-produced and therefore lightly armoured Allied vehicles like the T-34 and Sherman. When the 8.8cm KWK-36 was first introduced on the Tiger in 1942, it was unmatched by any other tank cannon, and therefore they only improved it later on in the war, with the Panther's 75mm gun and the Long 88 on the tanks like the Jag Panther and the King Tiger, which could outrange and outmatch any anti-tank gun fielded by the Allies. A third and final reason why they're so good is the armour, which later in the war became so heavy that even the 17-pounders struggled to destroy the Tiger 2 from the front. This is because up to 185mm of sloped frontal armour. Almost all the late war German tanks were built like this, which made fighting them terrifying for Allied soldiers, as many tanks such as the Jag Tiger, even though they were incredibly rare, once found there was no way of destroying them from the front. Now, the first flaw I want to talk about isn't exactly the fault of the vehicles, but the regime that made them. By 1944, many of the tank aces Germany once had were killed, which left the new recruits straight out of training to operate extremely complicated vehicles, whilst fighting the battle-hardened and well-supplied American, British and Soviet troops. As I said earlier, this isn't exactly the tank's fault, however they fed their performance dramatically, and the lack of fuel this led to many of the Wehrmacht's best tanks to be lost. Another thing that greatly affected them is Allied air power, which again isn't the vehicle's fault, but it sure had an effect on their usefulness in battle. German Second World War tank design, apart from being known for their size and power, they're also known for over-engineering and mechanical problems that plague the bigger tanks and supposedly better German armour. At its best, it caused higher maintenance for tanks like the Tiger, and its worst, created engine fires and loss of crews with tanks like the Panther D. If the Allies had this problem, it would be probably largely negated by the large amounts of support and engineering vehicles which could fix or retrieve lost tanks. However, because of the sheer weight of German tanks, they couldn't easily be retrieved, and they often lacked the engineering vehicles to fix them. Thirdly, heavy tanks like the Jag Tiger were both a strain on tank research and the factories that made them. I referenced this in my video on the Panther, as with just a bit more time and money in 1943 and early 1944, it could have been an almost war-winning weapon. However, all of Germany's top scientists and engineers were ordered to design for the Wunderwaffe, which had little effect on the progress of the war, which is a stupid waste of time, but had little effect such as the V1 and V2 rockets, that at most bombed a bit of London but never really had an effect of the war. In conclusion, I believe earlier heavies and mediums like the Tiger and Panther certainly made their mark on Allied soldiers and have managed to stay relevant to today while being famous for effectiveness, but vehicles like the Jag Tiger and the Wunderwaffe were a purely dumb waste of time that luckily only helped out the Allies.